Mark Wahlberg took his shoe off and sold it to me on a movie set. Welcome to my Set Stories series. I'm Renee, I'm a hairdresser, and I've also been working on movie sets for the last 6 years, and I want to share my set stories with you. This episode is about working with Mark Wahlberg on the set of Balls Up, which also features Benjamin Bratt and Paul Walter Hauser. Now, if you haven't seen Balls Up, go and watch it because there might be some spoilers in here. Now, I've got a few moments that I do want to share because they are really, really sweet, and I feel like people should know. But I do need to give some context about the situation to help you understand what's happening and why these moments are so sweet. So I did a 2-day shoot on Balls Up. We did two 15-hour shoot days in the nightclub scene. And we did 3 a.m. starts. So our call times were 3 a.m. and we finished at around 5:30, 6 p.m. So mega days. And that I was getting up at 1 a.m. to do my hair. I had to have my hair styled and then travel to set. So really long days. Getting up at 1 a.m. is wild. But we were running on Wahlberg time. Mark Wahlberg gets up super early and trains in the gym. So I'm pretty sure we will run on his schedule. This first moment is super, super sweet. And it does involve Benjamin Bratt. So I do have to mention a few things about Benjamin first. If you haven't seen the movie, please go and see it. I'm going to do some spoilers right now. So there is a scene where Benjamin strips off. He looks naked in the film, but he is in a very small G-string. And he climbs up and tries to put a condom on naked and falls over the edge and swings off a vine. So it's pretty funny. And they actually had a stunt double there that day for Benjamin. But Benjamin wanted to do the stunt himself. So the stunt guy had no work. He had to sit to the side and watch. And Ben was getting connected by all the cabling, standing up on this. It's really high as well. Even just to stand on the edge where Ben was standing was pretty hectic. We filmed at Cloudland nightclub up in the VIP section. So it's pretty scary. I was in a very small area with Mark. To give a little bit of context as to why I was in that small area, they needed a bunch of people in the VIP as a progression of the night as Ben's character is becoming more disheveled. I don't know what words I can use on YouTube. Yeah, we'll say disheveled. He's been sober for 9 years and now he's not sober. So basically, this progression required 2 girls to be dancing with Mark and Ben, and myself and another little short girl. We're both short. Were picked to dance with the boys, and we were paired up with them. So in this scene, we are dancing. And actually, quick little backstory. When you see people dancing in a nightclub in a film, the extras, the actors, whatever, they are dancing 99% of the time to no music. So when I was dancing with Mark and Ben, there's no music. And they kept saying, don't lift your heels off the floor. Keep your feet flat. So that's actually really hard to bust out moves when you're in heels on a hard, like wooden floor. So, as you look at that scene, look at it through that lens where it's panning across the nightclub floor at the bottom, it's up the top in the VIP, there's no music. Nothing. And the actors are yelling, like they're yelling over the music, but the music's dubbed in over the top. So whatever song they actually had dubbed in on the day was not even the song. They played a few seconds and then turned it off, just so you could get a bit of a beat in your head, that you could dance to. They played that Push Me, is it Benny Benassi, Push Me? Oh, I can't think of the song. Anyway, doesn't matter. So we're doing the thing and Ben's taking off the clothes. He's getting hooked up now for the stunt. And it's a really tight area. And I was just right next to Mark was sort of he was facing this way, right next to me. And I was watching Ben getting hooked up because there's cameras everywhere and we are squished in. And I sort of heard this kind of murmuring sound and I didn't really know. I thought, what's that sound? Because, when you are working in these environments, you are quiet. You can't be chatting and gossiping and yelling out to your friends or anything like that. So you just stand and observe and take in movie making, which I absolutely love watching. And I could hear, and then when I paid attention to what I was hearing, I realized it was a prayer. And when I looked, Mark's head was leaning on Paul's chest. So Paul was just here, and Mark was leaning on him, praying for Ben's safety, for doing the first rehearsal of the stunt. I was just like, that is the sweetest thing. And that's one of the stories I wanted to share, that he was, praying for Ben's safety. And it was just a really, really nice, special moment on that set, even though it's a funny set and it's a comedy and the director is hilarious, but I thought that was a really special moment. Moment number 2 is also up in that VIP section. And when Ben is on the edge and he's stripped off and he tries to put the thing on and he falls over the edge, we have to rush over to the edge. And where they wanted us to rush was in between 2 points, basically. So we had to rush into this small gap. So there was a camera here. We had the Scorpion camera coming up the front, which is the big one that shoots up. And I think that was this particular shoot. So I had a guy with a Steadicam, which is like this. It was like 2 things here, and the camera was like here, right? So all this mechanical stuff is in front of this guy's face, and he's like this. And everything's timed. So as soon as something happens, there's different cues. So when he gets up, the girl I'm dancing with grabs me, and she's like, I have to react to him, going over the edge. Look, we don't know if he's alive or not, right? So we've had 6 margaritas and we're a bit drunk. So that was our characters. The dancing girls were drunk. So when we rushed over in one of the takes, the timing wasn't right, and the camera hit me straight into the side of the head. And I know in film, it doesn't matter what happens to you, you keep filming, right? And because I can just move out of the way. And so the camera hit me in the side of the head and you could hear it. And I just ignored it and I moved out of the way so he could continue going through. So he couldn't stop either. So I didn't stop, he didn't stop. And we got the scene done. So afterwards, Mark, I didn't know that he could hear the bang. I probably lost some brain cells. But he came straight tearing over to me and he grabbed me on both of my arms and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I am. I'm okay, thank you." Like, it just clipped me on the side. And he said, "Yeah, I heard it." And I was like, that is so, that's my other really, really sweet moment with Mark, where he was literally, he acknowledged, he knew what happened, and he came over straight away to make sure I was okay. The camera guy also came over and made sure that I was okay. And I was like, it's okay. I've been hit in the head with cameras before. I ran into a camera when I was filming Elvis. We'll get into Elvis stuff another time. I've got so much really awesome stuff to talk about filming the Elvis movie here in Australia. So anyway, so I was like, nope, the show goes on. So anyway, that was a really nice moment. Now, Mark Wahlberg did take his shoe off and sell it to me in that VIP area. And to give you context, they were deassembling a camera and it was taking a little bit of time, and there was a table and Mark and I were leaning against the table, and like Mark had his, he was standing there reading his lines and I could see the lines. And my observation of Mark is he gets the work done, but he very much keeps to himself. I noticed that his natural speaking voice as well was low and really slow, just not what you hear on the screen. So even in the film, how he's talking, he doesn't sound like that normally. So that was one of the first things I noticed, was his natural speaking voice. I noticed that he tends to keep to himself, and if he made eye contact with you, he would break the eye contact straight away. One of the mornings I got to set. I was one of the first ones getting ushered into the very first scene we filmed. And he walked past me. We were in sort of single file, and he looked at me and he said, "Good morning." And I said, "Good morning, Mark," in this like high pitch. Oh, I was like, oh, why did I do that? It's so embarrassing. So, anyway, so he will speak to you and acknowledge, but I did know going onto this set that he didn't want to be approached and he didn't want to be talking to random people. I mean, at the end of the day, he is being paid to do a job and to stay in a character and remember his lines and all of the timing. Having these random conversations is just going to flick you out of that state, that really focused state. So I had worked with Mark, this close for about maybe 8 hours before I spoke to him. Because when they ushered me and the other girl in and they put tape on the floor, our starting positions we are in each other's personal space. Like, we are very close, and I'm very respectful of actors. I don't stare at them. I don't glare at them. Being next to Mark and looking around, the eyes staring, I get why they don't want to make eye contact. It's just constant. So I made sure I didn't look at him. I gave him his space. And I mean, when he's yelling at Ben in the scene, he's like literally blowing my eyelashes. Like, we are really close. But in the actual film, it looks like there's a gap there. And I don't know why, because there actually wasn't. There's a lot of that scene that like Ben and I kind of grinded a little bit, and that's not in there. So we were close, but it looks like there's a gap. I don't know. Anyway, movie magic, I guess. So we're just waiting up along this table for this camera, and it was they thought they had got it ready, but then something wasn't working. And I really wanted to have a conversation or talk to Mark somehow. I am a massive Mark Wahlberg fan. Like, the fact that I was next to him for such a long amount of time, working and bumping into each other and touching each other, and like, there were moments where Ben was practicing his like crack face, and he was doing it to Mark, and Mark's standing there like this going, and he's doing it to me, and I'm like, I laugh. I can't do like funny and not laugh. Like, I just laugh at everything, and I was losing it. And he said, "I've been doing that to my wife." And I was like, "You shouldn't," because like when you see that, you can't unsee it. He's like, non-sober face was incredible, and I really thought they should have showed that a little bit more. And he had a fair few lines of like smack talk that they did cut out. I feel like that character deserved another 15-20 seconds. They really glazed over it. I felt like it was too quickly. That whole scene was really cut down, and I felt like Ben's character deserved more. But anyway, back to the story about Mark and I. We're standing there, and I looked down, and Mark had this like blue suit on, but he had these shoes on, and it was his brand Municipal. And I spotted them straight away, and it looked really cool with what he was wearing. So I just leant over, and I had the right timing, and everything was timing for me. Otherwise, I would not have spoke to him and, interrupted his thought process or focus. And I said, "Your shoes are really sexy." And he pointed his foot out like a ballerina, and he looked at me and he goes, "I know." And I was like, "They actually look so good with the suit." And he said, "Well, they actually had me in." And he just turned to me, and then it was like a full-blown conversation. And mind you, there's like 250 extras off set just watching this happen. And he just said, "Look, they actually had me in dress shoes, brown dress shoes." And he said they were really hurting my lower back. So I I showed them to wardrobe, and they approved them. So, and I was like, they actually look way better. It looked really good, and I felt like it really suited his character too. So anyway, he took the shoe off, and he stood there in front of me with his shoe, and it had like dark blue, baby blue, white, a bit of gray. They looked really cool. And he goes, "These shoes literally mold to your feet." And I was like, they look really like comfortable to wear. He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I'm actually a hairdresser and I stand all day. So anything that is, you know, going to mold to your feet. I'm about this, right? And he's like, oh my God, these are perfect for a hairdresser. And then he just went and started showing me all the dimensions. I was pressing in the sole, and he was like talking about the different design and the foam and whatnot, what was in the shoe. And he's like, honestly, I was like, okay, do you have them in a ladies size 5 or 6? And he said, we do. And I said, well, shut up and take my money, because you've just sold me a pair of shoes. And he said, oh my goodness, thank you so much. And he was like, thank you for your kind words. I bless you, you know, really, really kind person. He's very, very sweet. But he's like, honestly, I can't fault the shoe. And he said, we've got lots of colors. However, he goes, there's just one problem. We don't actually ship to Australia yet. And I was like, well, you've got to get that sorted, because I want to wear these shoes. And he said, yeah, we're actually having meetings about getting shipments into Canada and Australia. So they're happening in the next 4 weeks. And but I just said, they're a really good looking shoe. And I said, I have seen some of your clothing brand before, and it's really nice stuff. And he's like, thank you so much. You know, it's been a lot of work, and thank you for your kind words. It actually really means a lot. You know, we had this like 5-minute conversation, and then the director said, okay, guys, first positions, go back to ones. And then we were, you know, ready to work again. And it was nice just breaking that little bit of ice with him, because, you know, I've worked with a lot of actors over the years, and like, what do you say to them? You know, you can't be like, how are you? Like, you can say that, but it's like, not when they're in their zone, not when they're concentrating. They're there to do a job. You know, you've got to read the room and pick your time to when, if you can speak to them, or if you can't. And you've always got to hold yourself as a professional. And I felt like it was a really constructive conversation. And I was so, like, when we finished the shooting, and he just, like, when we were sort of separated by camera, he kind of just gave me a bit of a wave. And that was the end of that day. Mark left. He was the first one to leave that set that day. And I felt really, it was a really nice conversation. I was actually really happy, to be honest. And I was just absolutely tripping driving home, because he's like one of my top 3 all-time favorite actors. And to actually spend like a very close and work with him directly. And, you know, he's got beautiful skin. He's got a really good head of hair, thick hair. He's got a great hairline. He has got beautiful hair. I had a really good look at it. And, you know, he's not very tall. So I understand why they picked 2 short girls. They did some shots over the head of us. And obviously Ben's quite tall, but when they were shooting through, they obviously needed they couldn't have girls really high next to Mark. They needed girls, like, we were in heels and we were a little bit shorter than him. So, but he's definitely a professional, and he doesn't seem to muck around on set as well. I noticed, like, Ben was doing lots of star jumps and, like, in a G-string. And, like, we had intimacy coaches there with the 2 girls, me and the other girl. And but, you know, to make him feel comfortable, and he just owned it like a trooper. He had such a great time doing that stunt. And so definitely a privilege to have been on that set. Even though it was 2 days, it was 2 long days. It felt like I was there for a week. And like the next day, waking up at 1 o'clock for 2 days straight, it's wild. I'm not built for that. But anyway, so they are my set stories of Balls Up and working with Mark Wahlberg.